Alright, buckle up Canada, because we're about to dive into the most Canadian trade drama since someone tried to tell us our maple syrup wasn't worth the hype. Doug Ford just fired a warning shot across the bow at Prime Minister Mark Carney, and honestly, it's the kind of political showdown that makes you grab the popcorn and a double-double. Ford's basically telling Carney, hey buddy, I know you're heading to China next week to play nice and fix our relationship, but whatever you do, don't you dare touch those tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. And let me tell you, this isn't just some casual suggestion whispered over Tim's coffee. This is Ford going full premier mode, standing his ground like a hockey enforcer protecting the blue line. So here's the tea, or should I say, here's the maple syrup on this political pancake. Canada slapped a massive 100% tariff on Chinese EVs back when Joe Biden was still the US president. We're talking a full doubling of the price, making those Chinese electric vehicles about as affordable as a downtown Toronto condo. The reasoning? Protect Canada's domestic auto industry. Which, let's be real, mostly means protecting Ontario's auto industry because that's where the magic happens. Ford Nation has always been ride or die for the auto sector, it's practically written into the provincial motto at this point. But here's where it gets spicy. China didn't just sit there and take it like a polite dinner guest who got served overcooked turkey at Thanksgiving. Oh no, they came back swinging with their own tariffs on Canadian canola, seafood, and pork. And suddenly, Prairie farmers went from concern to full-on panic mode faster than you can say trade war. Now let's talk about why this matters so much it's making headlines across the country. When Canada decided to buddy up with Biden's administration and throw down those tariffs, we weren't just making a trade decision, we were making a geopolitical statement. We were basically saying, hey China, we see what you're doing with your heavily subsidized EV industry, and we're not having it. The problem is, and this is where it gets messy, trade decisions are never made in a vacuum. They're like dropping a stone in a pond, except this pond is the global economy and the ripples can knock over entire industries. Prairie provinces have been absolutely hammering Ottawa to lift those tariffs because their farmers are getting crushed. Canola farmers are watching their export markets dry up, seafood harvesters are seeing their livelihoods threatened, and pork producers are basically watching years of market development go up in smoke. These aren't just abstract economic numbers on a spreadsheet, these are real people with real businesses getting caught in the crossfire of an international trade dispute. But Doug Ford isn't budging, and honestly, you have to appreciate the man's consistency. During his Thursday news conference, he made it crystal clear. We can't back down. Simple as that. No hemming, no hawing, no political doublespeak that requires a decoder ring to understand. Just straight up, don't even think about it, Mark. Ford's argument is pretty straightforward when you break it down. Ontario's auto industry employs thousands of people, it's a cornerstone of the provincial economy, and if we open the floodgates to cheap Chinese EVs, those jobs vanish faster than free samples at Costco on a Saturday afternoon. He even threw in a little sweetener, saying if Chinese automakers want to come set up manufacturing facilities in Ontario and employ uniform workers, then yeah, let's talk. But shipping in finished cars? That's a hard no from the Premier's office. What makes this whole situation even more complicated is the timing. Mark Carney isn't just taking a casual diplomatic vacation to Beijing. He's going there with a mission to repair a relationship that's been more fractured than a dropped phone screen since the whole Huawei incident back in 2018. Remember that absolute mess? Canada arrested Meng Wanzhou, the chief financial officer of Huawei Technologies, at the request of the United States, and China responded by arbitrarily detaining two Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. For over 1,000 days, these two Canadians were held in Chinese detention in what everyone knew was straight-up hostage diplomacy. It was one of the lowest points in Canada-China relations in modern history, and we're still dealing with the fallout. So when Carney heads over to meet with President Xi Jinping and other top Chinese officials, he's not just talking trade numbers and tariff rates. He's trying to rebuild trust, establish dialogue, and find some kind of middle ground that works for both countries. But here's where Ford's warning creates a real dilemma for Carney. On one hand, you've got the Prairie provinces practically begging for relief. Their agricultural sectors are hemorrhaging money and market access because of Chinese retaliatory tariffs. These are provinces that have historically been economic powerhouses for Canada, and their farmers and producers are hurting bad. The pressure from Prairie premiers isn't just political noise, it's a genuine economic crisis for their constituents. On the other hand, you've got Ontario, the manufacturing heart of Canada, saying that backing down on EV tariffs would be an absolute disaster for the auto industry. And let's not pretend Ontario doesn't carry serious weight in Confederation. The province represents a huge chunk of Canada's GDP and population, and the auto sector specifically has been a Canadian success story for decades. Ford isn't wrong when he says that flooding the market with subsidized Chinese EVs could devastate domestic manufacturing. The fundamental tension here is that Canada is caught between competing interests, and there's no clean solution that makes everyone happy. It's like trying to please everyone at a family dinner where half the table wants turkey and the other half wants ham, except instead of dinner, it's billions of dollars in trade and thousands of jobs hanging in the balance. The federal government has to juggle regional interests, international relations, economic policy, and political optics all at once, and right now, there's no path forward that doesn't leave somebody upset. If Carney caves on the EV tariffs to help Prairie agriculture, Ford and Ontario's auto sector will absolutely lose it. If he stands firm to protect manufacturing, Prairie provinces will continue to suffer and the pressure will only intensify. And hovering over all of this is the reality that Canada needs China as a trading partner whether we like it or not. China is our second largest trading partner after the United States, and while we'd all love to reduce that dependency, you can't just flip a switch and restructure decades of economic relationships overnight. What's particularly interesting about Ford's position is how it reflects the broader debate happening across Western democracies about how to handle China economically. Do you engage and try to maintain trading relationships, hoping that economic interdependence will moderate behavior? Or do you take a harder line, accept the short-term economic pain, and work to decouple from an authoritarian regime that doesn't play by the same rules? There's no easy answer, and reasonable people can disagree. But what's clear is that tariffs are a blunt instrument. They're the economic equivalent of using a sledgehammer when you might need a scalpel. Sure, they send a strong message and protect specific industries, but they also create collateral damage that spreads far beyond the intended target. Prairie farmers didn't ask for this fight, but they are paying the price because Canada decided to take a stand on EVs. The other elephant in the room is what happens with the United States. Remember, Canada initially imposed those EV tariffs in coordination with the Biden administration. But now there's a new sheriff in town. Donald Trump is back as president, and his approach to China and trade policy is, shall we say, unpredictable at best. If the US shifts its position on Chinese imports or tariffs, does Canada follow suit or do we chart our own course? And if we go our own way, what does that mean for our integrated North American auto industry? These are the kinds of questions that keep trade ministers up at night, because getting it wrong could cost jobs on both sides of the border. So where does this leave us? Mark Carney is heading to Beijing with Doug Ford's warning ringing in his ears, Prairie premiers breathing down his neck, and the weight of Canadian economic interests sitting squarely on his shoulders. Trade will absolutely be front and center when he sits down with Xi Jinping, and you can bet the Chinese side will push hard for those EV tariffs to come down. They want market access, they want to dominate the global EV industry, and they're not afraid to use their economic leverage to get what they want. The question is whether Carney can find some kind of compromise that addresses China's concerns without sacrificing Ontario's auto sector, and whether he can extract any concessions that help Prairie agriculture without looking like Canada is backing down. What happens next week in Beijing could shape Canada-China relations for years to come, and it'll definitely impact whether your next electric vehicle is made in Oshawa or Shanghai. Ford has drawn his line in the sand, and now we wait to see if Carney will cross it or find another path forward. One thing's for sure, Canadian politics never fails to deliver drama, and this showdown between federal diplomacy and provincial protectionism is just getting started. So what do you think? Should Canada hold firm on those EV tariffs to protect Ontario's auto workers, or is it time to find a compromise that helps Prairie farmers breathe again? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button because we're dropping multiple videos every single day with all the latest Canadian political updates you need to stay informed. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when Canadian Insights breaks down the drama, the deals, and the decisions shaping our country. We'll catch you in the next one.